Eileen is a brand new film directed by William Oldroyd, starring Thomasin McKenzie as Eileen Dunlop and Anne Hathaway as Rebecca St. John. It is an adaptation of Ottessa Moshfegh's book, Eileen. The movie does take some liberties in censoring some content from the book, but I think it's for the better of the audience. What does get censored, there's quite a lot in the book that not necessarily is unneeded. However, it's a lot of content that would really kind of turn some viewers away from the film, as opposed to when you have it removed from the film, you can really kind of draw in a wider audience. And also, you're able to actually get this distributed with an R rating for what it is in the first place, as opposed to what would probably be an NC-17 or unrated release if this had gotten all of the content from the book. But this is a great film for those of you who are a big fan of a slow burn character study. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this to everyone though, because it takes about an hour to get to the main point of the plot in the story based on what you see on IMDb, where it talks about Eileen being kind of a young, unknowing woman, kind of learning the ways of the world as she becomes a young adult. And then when Rebecca St. John comes into town, the new psychiatrist for the young men's prison that Eileen works at, kind of sweeps her off her feet. There's a little bit of a relationship there. And then that's where I can stop before I get to any sort of spoilers for what happens. You're not going to be ready for what comes at about the 60-ish minute mark in this movie. And from there, it is a roller coaster of emotions. As opposed to going up to that, you're kind of like, okay, I'm really starting to learn what motivates Eileen, what Eileen is going for, why her character is kind of the way she is, and the way she was raised as well plays into it as she's starting to grow into a young woman. Like I said, it's a coming of age film. It's a character study, and Thomasin McKenzie does a really good job of portraying Eileen Dunlop. The biggest flaw I would say with the movie in and of itself is it does kind of take you out of the performance that Thomasin McKenzie gives as Eileen when she starts to talk after a while of her character being silent in a scene, and you can hear her New Zealand accent come out. You really kind of need to be involved in the character when it comes to the accent, because that is the easiest way for anyone to fall out of a movie based in New England, is to know that you are not watching characters who are able to give their 100% effort into being a New Englander, because anyone from America will tell you Boston, especially the accent, is one of the most aggressive things on this planet in terms of how it comes across to people in a portrayal. And it takes a lot to be able to even do that as an actor or an actress. I can't do it. I'm not trying to say that it's anything easy she'd even be able to immediately pick up on. It's just kind of, there are a few scenes where I think they really could have done not some reshoots, but some more work with her to be able to get her accent to flow easier than how it does in this movie. But other than that, I think what my favorite part of this movie is it doesn't waste your time. You spend an hour getting to know Eileen, so the twist hits harder. With a 90 to a 100 minute movie with Eileen here, what you're getting from William Oldroyd is a film that's going to capture a little bit more of an audience simply based on its runtime, as well as the fact that this is going to be one of those movies where it's not necessarily made for everyone, because it doesn't immediately have that conclusion that everyone's going to be talking about. It doesn't have that conclusion that everyone's going to instantly be like, oh my goodness, this is the greatest solution of all time, or this is the most dramatic ending of all time. In this movie, you spend 90 to 100 minutes with Eileen as you see all of the compounding factors outside in her life start to pile into one. And when you get to the twist that's, like I said, about an hour into this movie, you get to that twist, and that is the end of any expectations you could have had for this film making any sense. Because you, going in blind, if you haven't read the book, you are going in for a great time here. You're going to get a story that makes you think. This isn't an immediate, here's your resolution and here's what it means story. There leaves some open room for interpretation here with this story, and it's, without going too far into spoilers, it's one of the more, probably going to end up being a more debated ending for a film in 2023. And I really liked the way that William Oldroyd's able to kind of put you in the 1950s, 60s era and really just drive it home. That's where you are. That's how the world is. That's how everything is treated at this time. And it really does make sure that everything that happens in this film happens for a reason. Not a single thing on this movie, not a line of dialogue, not a single thought, not an action or any even like a glance between a character and another character. And with every bit of it really being used like that, you're getting a tight, nice story that, even though it isn't the most action-packed, keeps you enthralled the entire time. I had more people in my theater than I was expecting to have in my theater for a film like this, because I'm gonna be honest, there wasn't necessarily marketed the best by Neon. They were hoping that Anne Hathaway's name alone would carry this, especially on Google searches, people looking up what movie she's going to be in next. This didn't get a lot of advertising. This is more of an artsy film for a lot of people who are really in-depth with art house style movies. You're going to want to recommend this to your friends who love a good character study, love a slow burn film that really takes its time to deliver you every single moment of that character in the story that's being told, as well as you're going to love good thriller, noir twist style movies. You're going to really want to see this, not necessarily with a bunch of friends. However, this is going to be one of those movies where you want to see it and talk to people about it once it's over, because you're going to have some opinions on it one way or the other. As soon as you walk out of the theater, you will have immediately formed an opinion. It could change over time. You might immediately form a different opinion the next day, or you might form it 3 weeks from now if you end up watching this a second time or a third time. But this is one of those movies where there's some open-ended room for debate. Without going into spoilers, I can't tell you what that room for debate is. However, I really do think this is a movie that's going to want to be talked about for a while among people who are more into film, not necessarily a casual audience that would go to, say, a Marvel movie or a DC movie. But this is one that's made for fans of film, made for people who are going to appreciate a good character study film, and those who are really going to want to see this movie simply based on the director or Thomasin McKenzie or Anne Hathaway, or you've seen the story. You're really going to want to see this one if you love a character study. But I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Like I said, I know it's kind of a minor gripe to take some points off for here, but you really kind of do get taken out of this movie a lot when Thomasin McKenzie starts a line a little later into a scene and her accent isn't there, but they can't retake it because they know that she's just not going to be able to form that Boston accent instantly while she's talking. She kind of has to find it while she's running her lines, while she's saying her lines. It could maybe use a little bit more from the book, but not necessarily any of the more graphic content that would cause it. Just a little bit more of the in-depth thought processes behind some of what Eileen is thinking, or some of the motivations behind what Eileen is thinking. But other than that, you're going to have a great time at the theater with this one, and I recommend you go see it. So if you've seen Eileen, directed by William Oldroyd, starring Thomasin McKenzie and Anne Hathaway, go ahead and comment on this video what you thought of the movie. Tweet me, tag me on an Instagram post, send me a message on TikTok, tag me in a video on there, at the Cinema Madhouse. Let me know what you thought of it. I'd love to engage in conversation about this film, especially once we get past that rough 1 week grace period I like to give people to go see a movie. But other than that, I hope you have a great time at the theater with Eileen. Once again, I'm going to go ahead and give it a 7 out of 10.